Congressman Jeffries, thank you for being with us. Let me ask you how you look at the situation. You have the conditions of migrant children being forced to live in what many have observed as inhuman conditions. You have the postings of Border Patrol. I mean, this is as bad as it can get in terms of racist postings, making children go days without any kind of bathing and any kind of medical care in some situations. And yet this president seemed oblivious to the criticism.
Well, good afternoon, Rev. It's great to be with you, and you're exactly right. The entire situation is completely out of control. The inhumanity of the treatment of migrant children should shock the conscience of every single American. The conditions that exist down on the U.S.-Mexico border are horrendous. You have young children being forced to live in conditions often without adequate food, without adequate water, without adequate medicine, without adequate diapers, without adequate soap, and in conditions that you would expect not in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. It's a stain on our democracy, a stain on our country, certainly a stain on this administration. And the inhumanity that we continue to see by some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who both deny the conditions, as well as the President of the United States of America who seems to welcome the conditions, is something that is another sad chapter of this administration's sordid history over the last 2.5 years.
Now, to put this in perspective, as I raised to Jeff, you have a president that almost, with a smirk, tells Putin of Russia, don't mess with our elections, ha-ha almost. Then he goes and meets with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, steps over in North Korea with no commitment, all while he's presiding over his administration that is in denial or ignoring the charges of what's going on with migrant children. And then he has this great military celebration of America and the birth of the country, when the country in concept and principle was born to oppose dictatorships and oppose people not having the right to vote. I mean, you couldn't have had a more paradoxical week in terms of the optics he tried to project and the reality of what he did.
That's exactly right. Two things, as you illustrated. One, we're a nation of immigrants, and his behavior is completely inconsistent with that. And the xenophobia that continues to be peddled out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, we believe is intentional. And the cruelty that you see along the U.S.-Mexico border at this point in time, one has to conclude, is designed to create what some in the administration have said is a deterrent effect, so that the families who are in the Central American Northern Triangle countries of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, who make up the majority of the migrants who are coming, would perhaps be concerned about sending their children into these type of horrendous conditions as to the oasis of opportunity that the United States of America has traditionally been. You have a president who continues to play footsie with people, thuggish individuals like Vladimir Putin and MBS from Saudi Arabia, and Kim Jong-un, of course, from North Korea. Donald Trump clearly is a wannabe dictator with authoritarian tendencies, and we're going to have to make sure we take care of him so we can end this long national nightmare one way or the other by November of 2020, if not earlier.
Well, I'm going to deal with that, of course, in the show from down here in New Orleans. Some of the contenders are here. But I want to also drive home the point that this administration at the same time is insisting, you mentioned immigration and its impact on this country and what it has meant to this country. At the same time, this president is fighting to put a citizenship question on the census, which directly could impact colors, people of colors, communities, districting. Nobody knows that better than you. At the same time, they're trying to fight to make sure that that question is still put on the census.
perhaps in defiance of a Supreme Court order, certainly at this point, the spirit of that Supreme Court decision. And we're going to continue to make sure that we do everything possible to ensure that that unnecessary un-American citizenship question does not make its way onto the census form. And in the House of Representatives, I think you'll see our fight to make sure that there's language in the spending and appropriation bill that we need to have signed into law in advance of October 1st, which is the start of the fiscal year, that would prohibit either the Department of Justice or the Department of Commerce from expending any taxpayer dollars in support of that particular citizenship. And we also need to try to work toward uplifting this country as a nation of immigrants. We do have a broken immigration system. We do need comprehensive immigration reform. We should work on it in a bipartisan way, but we need allies on the other side of the aisle and within the administration as opposed to hatred.